Welcome back to Strange Resort, the podcast that lurks in the shadows of otherwise sunny vacation destinations. I'm your host, George Hatfield, and I am currently wide awake. It is the middle of the night, and I am standing in my hotel room here at the Derry Townhouse. I have made some otherworldly discoveries as I've charted the disturbingly violent history of this community. Derry is a town full of secrets. Just moments ago, I heard what I believe is a supernatural presence inviting me to visit the sewers of Derry, Maine. But this feels genuine. And I have a theory that if I go down into the sewers, the vanished words written in Michael Hanlon's journals will somehow reappear and reveal themselves on the page. I got a glimpse of this just a little while ago when I held one of the pages near the dripping faucet. And so my hypothesis is that the sewer system is the source of the magic here in Derry, and that these words will reappear, sort of like the mystical runes in The Hobbit that unveil themselves by moonlight. And so, it is beneath the city of Derry that I expect to find the answers that I've been looking for. Of course, now that I've said all of this out loud, I realize how crazy it all sounds. But I'm going to do it anyway. Would you care to join me? It is 5 minutes after midnight, which means I have begun my third day here in Derry. I am driving through the town in my trusty Prius. I have my flashlight that I borrowed from the front desk. I have a vial of holy water. I have my lucky key that I found back in Desperation, Nevada, that is kind of like my good luck charm. And of course, if all else fails, I have brought along pepper spray. Hey, my trusty Prius. It has just stopped in the middle of this road. I hope the battery's not dead. I get out and look at the cross street so I can call a tow truck. And I realize the name of this street is familiar to me. I haven't been here before, but I've researched this place a number of times. Witcham Street. This is the very location where yet another cycle of violence began in Derry. Back in 1957, the carnage that took place on this street would lead to a new series of child abductions and murders, similar to those back in 1930, and another quarter century before that, in 1905. The violence in the 1950s, though gruesome and terrifying, did not end with the same high body count as in previous decades. And I want to find out why. Perhaps it begins here, in this storm drain. On an October afternoon in 1957, a 6-year-old boy, dressed in a yellow rain slicker and red rubber boots, played with a paper boat, racing it down the gutter in the aftermath of a rainstorm. This boy's last name was Denbrough. He was the younger brother of William Denbrough, who would grow up to become the famous author of The Black Rapids and other works of horror. And yes, this is the same person as Bill Denbrough, the name listed in Michael Hanlon's address book. The same Bill whose first name is listed on the Losers Club, found on the plaque at Carter Lookout. We'll get into the big brother's role in this history soon, but I want to focus on his kid brother, whose first name is the same as mine, George. George Denbrough, known as Georgie to his family and friends. It was this very spot in 1957 that authorities believe Georgie's boat fell down into this drain, and that when the boy reached into it to retrieve the toy, something horrific occurred.
My father was in the kitchen when he heard the first scream.
This is Harold Gardner talking about his father, David, the first person to discover George's body. David Gardner was a shoe salesman at a shop downtown.
Oh yeah, my dad was a solid guy, a real stand-up guy.
And according to his son, he was one of the few citizens in Derry who wasn't afraid to stand up and help someone in need. David Gardner followed the screams, which were fading now. He ran down the street to the drain right here, where he discovered the lifeless body of Georgie Denbrough. Blood flowed down the gutter. The child's arm had been torn from its socket.
And what did police say about the cause of death? Did they believe that it was an animal, or did they know it was a human?
Well, my take on it was that something down there got Georgie. You know, it's not like there were any wild animals living in those sewers. That'd be ridiculous. But what happened was that Georgie got his arm stuck in the storm drain, and something from down there just decided to rip it right off.
Mrs. Gardner and other neighbors soon joined this tragic gathering, and in these early moments it was not treated as a crime scene, or so Harold Gardner tells me. The community was too stunned. Instead of calling the police at first, Mr. and Mrs. Gardner covered the slain boy in an old blanket, and then David Gardner carried the child's body up the street to the home of the Denbroughs, where Georgie's mother would walk onto her porch steps and scream at the sight of the blood-stained quilt. David's son Harold was one of the few people willing to speak to me on the phone before I even stepped foot in Derry. Harold would go on to become a Derry police officer in the 1980s. In fact, he investigated the murder of Adrian Mellon. He told me that he has vague childhood memories of the Denbrough boys playing on the street, and that the two brothers seemed to love each other very much. Georgie's death must have tormented William Denbrough throughout the years, because his novels are very dark indeed. His first novel, Joanna, dealt with ghosts, guilt, and regrets. He wrote it when he was only 23 years old, and on a whim, he sent it off to only one publishing house, Viking Press. According to interviews, something about the logo appealed to him. As it turns out, the Viking Press logo is a boat. William Denbrough's most successful books were his early ones, Joanna, The Black Rapids, Attic Room. Critics agree that each novel is rooted by a deep sense of loss, perhaps making him the ideal leader of a group called the Losers Club. Okay, well, my car has turned back on, and looks like we can finally make it to the sewers, which means that fate is finally on my side. But I'm not planning to tromp around the barrens all by myself. First, I'm headed to the Holiday Inn, where my research partner, Ranger McFarland, has been staying. I could and probably should wait until morning, give myself a chance to think this through logically, and give Trish a good night's sleep. But something tells me that if I want the answers, then tonight is my only chance. As I drive, I meander through the dark avenues of Derry. I feel like I'm on a self-guided tour through a haunted museum in the guise of a town. I pass by Outer Jackson Street, and again Details from my research bubble up into my mind. It was along this street where they found the second victim of this violent cycle. On December 26th, 1957, one day after Christmas, 13-year-old Betty Ripson was discovered. Her body was mutilated, her abdomen opened up, her corpse stuck in frozen mud. The two deaths didn't seem connected at first, but then, a few months later, in April 1958, a man was fishing for trout in the Kenduskeag, but instead of a fish, he caught a dismembered forearm of 16-year-old Cheryl LaMonica. She was a single mom who gave birth to her daughter Andrea when she was only a child of 13. Before the grisly discovery at the Kenduskeag was made, Cheryl had been missing for 5 weeks. Authorities believed that she had been murdered by one of her many so-called boyfriends. This meant that the police still did not make a connection between the deaths of the Denbrough boy or Betty Ripson. But after the discovery of the rest of Cheryl LaMonica's body caught in a fallen tree further up the Kenduskeag, forensic evidence would show a gory similarity. The mutilation, the tearing, was almost monstrous, inhuman, in all 3 cases. Less than 2 weeks later, 3-year-old Matty Clements was riding his tricycle on the sidewalk outside his home on the corner of Kossuth Lane and Kansas Street. His mother ducked into the house to change the laundry, and when she returned, little Matty had vanished. His tricycle remained. The next day, a junior high school teacher took his class on a nature walk. He and several other students spotted a pair of red sneakers sticking out of a culvert. Those shoes were attached to the lifeless corpse of little Matthew Clements. In May of 1958, the slayings continued in spite of a citywide curfew. During the beginning of summer on one day, a boy was searching for loose change by poking a stick with a piece of gum at the end of it through the grates of storm drains. Instead of money, he found the eyes of a corpse staring at him. It was Veronica Grogan. She was a 4th grade student at the Neibolt Church Street School. The funeral services took place on what would have been her 10th birthday. Police Chief Richard Borton did not initially believe that one person was responsible for all of these killings. Authorities theorized that there may have been one man who killed the girls and another who killed the boys. But what if this kid killer wasn't even a man? What if he was actually another child? A psychotic juvenile delinquent, a fellow classmate of some of the victims, a sadistic bully, a gang leader, someone like Henry Bowers. But we'll get to that flawed theory later. I've reached my destination here at the Holiday Inn parking lot, and it's time to wake up Ranger McFarland and get this adventure started.
Hello?
Hey, Trish. Hey, I'm sorry if I woke you up.
Oh, yeah, I was just getting ready for bed. Well, what are you doing up so late? Is everything okay?
Actually, everything is great. In fact, I am in the hotel parking lot of your Holiday Inn right now because we have a midnight mission to go on. So, how soon can you get ready?
Where are we going?
We are going to go into the barrens, and we are going to go straight into the sewer.
Right now. George, this sounds crazy.
I know, but let me tell you. I tell Trish about the drips and the drain and the voices and the tapes and everything that has been happening this night. She doesn't seem impressed.
George, it sounds like you're walking into a death trap.
Well, we won't go that far into the sewer.
Look, George, I've finally listened to all of your podcasts.
Oh, great. What'd you think?
No, they're great. They're great. Very interesting. but sometimes it seems like you make some very careless decisions.
Okay.
Basically, I have some questions.
All right.
So, first of all, I listened to the one where you're stuck on the abandoned island, and there's the one where you're in the jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get out of there?
Well, God, you want me to explain right now? Trish,
There's just a lot of holes.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. A while ago, I was investigating a chalk pentagram that kept reappearing on the floor of an old schoolhouse that might have been cursed, and while studying the dark arts to prepare for that episode, I may have accidentally invited some spirits in. But I also, in the process, learned several summoning spells, which was fortunate for me because when I was marooned on this tiny little island in the Pacific, I drew a pentagram and offered up a few pieces of skeleton bones as a sacrifice so that I could summon a sailboat to return to me. But it turned out that I probably didn't need to resort to amateur sorcery because by morning, Mrs. T, the ship captain, came back to me. I thought she was just playing a practical joke on me, but she somehow sensed the black magic that I had used and told me that a demon would be after me at some point to receive payment, whatever that means. I thought she was exaggerating, of course, but after the mad archaeologist Roger Finham in Desperation, Nevada, Mrs. T might have been onto something. I thought I was going to end up dead too, but as Roger Finham opened the cell door, I surprised him. I used the metal hotel key, placing it between my knuckles and making a fist, and I got one lucky punch in, and I think that I may have punctured his eye. But I didn't stick around to find out. I escaped from the area ASAP, and that probably catches you up. Any questions?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, that's certainly an explanation for everything, although I don't know how much is realistic or true.
It's true. I don't know if it's realistic, but it's true.
Well, just hold on a second. I'll be right down.
Oh, great. Oh, here's Trish.
Get in, loser. We're going ghost hunting.
George, I wanted to come down here in person and tell you that I am not going with you.
Yeah?
Well, I just don't think it's a good idea to go in the middle of the night on such short notice. I wanted to give you this, because it's always brought me luck in the past.
I'm not certain how much good a compass will do me when I'm deep underneath the city of Derry, but I promise Trish that I will keep it safe. And I can tell by the look on her face that there is no convincing her to come along with me on this misadventure. She just smiles and waves and walks back into the hotel lobby. And I'm fine with that. With this kind of job, I'm used to going it alone. I've parked my Prius, and I am now entering the barrens. Am I afraid of evil clown ghosts? A little bit, to be honest. But I believe that restless spirits, even evil ones, if they exist at all, cannot cause any physical harm. I'm actually a little more worried that I'm going to bump into a vagrant, or a transient, or what's a better word, a homeless person. That's why I'm making loud noises as I walk through the underbrush. I don't want to startle anybody, or, anything. I've been thinking about the subsequent murders. In particular, the ones where the bodies were never discovered. Odds are, some of the skeletons of those missing children from long ago are probably still out here, or inside there, It makes me think of the unsolved mystery of Edward Corcoran. In the June 21st, 1958 edition of Derry News, the front page reads, "Missing Boy Prompts New Fears." 10-year-old Eddie Corcoran disappeared. He was last seen walking home from school just as his summer vacation was about to begin. His parents waited 24 hours before notifying the police, one of the many suspicious details that led authorities to investigate the stepfather, Richard Macklin, who had been known throughout the neighborhood as being an abusive and alcoholic parent. Edward's fifth-grade teacher told reporters that the boy would sometimes arrive at school battered and bruised, and yet he never said a word against his stepfather. But Edward hadn't been an only child. Dorsey was his younger brother who died at the age of 4, only months before Edward would disappear. Originally, the young child's death was considered an accident. The stepfather claimed that little Dorsey fell off of a stepladder. But after Edward disappeared and rumors multiplied, the authorities exhumed the body of Dorsey Corcoran, and coroners found substantial evidence of blunt force trauma. Richard Macklin was arrested for the murder of his 4-year-old stepson. During interrogations, he confessed to Dorsey, but proclaimed his innocence when it came to Eddie. He was sentenced to 20 years in Shawshank State Prison. Instead, he would take his own life before those 2 decades elapsed. Many people at the time believed Macklin was responsible for the other homicides, including that of Edward Corcoran, whose remains were never found. It's nice to imagine that maybe Edward is still alive somewhere, that he simply decided to leave behind his abusive home life and this heartless town, and lit out for the territories. Speaking of which, my own journey awaits. It's dark out here, but I recognize this entrance from the old photos in the Hanlon archives. This is the same drainage pipe where Officer Nell discovered the body of 9-year-old James Cullum, known as Jimmy to his friends at school. Jimmy loved playing Scrabble and watching the rain fall on stormy days. When the police found the boy's corpse, it had been bloated from the moisture, and according to the autopsy report, crows had pecked away almost all of his face, but left the nose completely intact. Ugh. Well, time to go in. Here we go. It's cramped. It's gross. I was hoping to enter a larger tunnel, but this is the only one I could find that was unlocked. All right. I'm not sensing any sort of presence, but just in case. If there are any spirits of the once living, I come as a friend. And if there are any demons, I renounce you in the name of the light. And if there are any hobos, I apologize for waking you. I'm not planning to go too far down into this tunnel for this experiment. I just want to see if the words on these blank pages... Yes, I can see the writing. At least I can on the first page. The others are still blank. The first line reads thus: "Can an entire city be haunted?" I'm going to take a screenshot of this so I can read the rest later on, but it is dated January 2nd, 1985. This is incredible. It mentions Adrian Mellon, and here he's asking questions such as, what is feeding Derry? And what's feeding on Derry? Oh, I wish there were more pages. I wonder why the first page comes up and the others are still blank. Hang on, I'm going to test something. I'm going to go down a little bit further down this tunnel. just to see, just a little bit further, just to see. Yes. There's the second page. There's another page. This is incredible. Yeah, the words are fading right back before my eyes. But what's interesting is this does seem to suggest that there is something, that there is some type of psychic presence here, some type of spiritual presence that wants me to go further into this tunnel, like it's going to lure me page by page, which of course makes me wonder if other people have been lured here in the past. It makes me think of those bloody final murders in that summer of 1958, when Henry Bowers and his friends wandered in here, and only one of them survived. It seems like every elementary school has a Henry Bowers, a stereotypical bully, the sociopath of the playground. And in the case of Henry Bowers, this is more than just schoolyard talk, because at the age of 12, Henry was arrested for the murder of his father. And many believe that Henry Bowers was responsible for most, if not all, of the murders that took place that tumultuous summer. Many reporters at the time believed Bowers not only killed random children, but his own friends, slaying them one at a time somewhere down here in the sewers. How true are those theories? We may never know, but there are a few facts to consider. In July of 1958, Henry Bowers was the last person to see a boy named Patrick Hochstetter, one of his so-called friends. Patrick was part of the Bowers gang, which also consisted of Victor Criss, Reginald Belch Huggins, and a high school student named Steve Moose Sadler. That day in July, Patrick was with Henry, Victor, and Reginald. They were together in the local junkyard, socializing. Eventually, Victor and Reginald left for home. Henry Bowers and Hochstetter were left to their own devices. Henry left the junkyard alone. That evening, he returned home to his abusive father, Butch Bowers. But Patrick would never come home. He became yet another one of the missing, one of the vanished children of Derry, which must have been devastating to young Patrick's parents, who had already lost a child, losing their second-born son, just a baby, to sudden infant death syndrome. Was there foul play in the case of Patrick Hochstetter's disappearance? Henry Bowers may have been the only person who could truly answer that question, just as perhaps he was the only one that could know what exactly happened in these tunnels in August of 1958, when Henry and his companions entered these sewers. We know from his rantings to police that he was chasing the losers, that he wanted to pay back those losers, which of course makes me think of the Losers Club. I haven't gotten a chance to do much research on these people yet, but I like to think that the Losers Club was the antithesis of the Bowers gang. But did the Losers Club go into the sewers on the same day? And if so, were they chased there? Or did these children also believe that Henry Bowers was responsible for these murders? In an act of vigilante justice, perhaps they turned the tables somehow. Again, I still need to dig into the research and hopefully be able to contact some of these people in the near future and ask them if they remember anything about Mr. Bowers. But for now, all we know is that Henry and his friends went into the sewers, and his companions, Victor Criss and Belch Huggins, would never see the light of day again. And I should be careful that I don't get lost in here myself.
Oh no, it's a hobo. I mean, the unhoused.
No.
Is this the spirit of the dead clown?
No, I ain't no ghost.
Wait, do I know you?
Sure do, Georgie. You met back in desperation.
Dr. Fenham? You should know I've brought along pepper spray.
Good.
What do you want?
An eye for an eye, among other things. But not what I want.
What do you mean?
I am just a carrier of the Canton, the servant of Tack, who wants to lead us into the deadlights.
I have no idea what he is talking about. In fact, I don't even want to know. And so, I run. Unfortunately, I run in the wrong direction. He knocks the flashlight out of my hand. So I pepper spray him in the face.
Why am I all sticky like a candy cane?
I don't know. Oh my God. It's peppermint spray. I got the wrong one. Because I was going to pepper spray. And I just
Hold still now.
Most of those sounds you hear right now are just me. Gasping and gagging, about to lose consciousness.
Please, God.
Then, in a last-ditch attempt at survival,
Please. God.
I reach for my vial of holy water.
Don't let me die surrounded in poop.
I was hoping to splash it in his face, just in case he was a demon, but instead, I dropped the vial. It turns out I may have accidentally blessed this entire drainage system. I don't know why Dr. Fenham is in such a panic, but I take advantage of the moment and get as far away from him as I can. His cries of anger and pain fade away as I wander further and further into the tunnels. I still have the notebook and Trish's compass. Not that either can help me at this point, but then I remember something that Ranger McFarland once told me. My cell phone has a flashlight. Hey Siri. Can you turn on the flashlight mode?
Okay, I turned flashlight on.
Oh, thank you.
Sure thing.
I think I got away. And I think that holy water actually worked. Now if I can just get one more miracle and find my way out before Venom finds me. What was that? I'm not sure how long I've been down here. It might be hours. It might be days. No, I just checked my phone. It's been about 15 minutes. It still feels like a lifetime. Bugs. I don't know how long it's been now. If anybody finds this device, my name is George Hatfield. I tried calling Trish on the phone, but there's no service. Stupid Verizon. Look, I don't think that I'm going to see the light of day again. I expected to encounter some sort of spiritual presence down here. But if ever demons once preyed upon Derry, they seem long dead, and their grave is somewhere within this impossibly vast sewer system.
George?
Ranger McFarland!
Did you get a little lost?
How did you find me?
It's the compass I gave you.
Brought me luck after all?
Well, I put the GPS tracker inside of it.
Oh, thank you. I was thinking we should get out of Derry for a while.
I think that's a good idea.
Maybe we should visit Castle Rock.
No.